Hello guys, long time no see. So I know that it has actually been a long time that I have done something like this, but uh, it's been tough trying to balance everything: school, tests, projects, lecturers, and events basically. So I finally had some time off, and I decided to just work on something small, but something that is also useful, because I felt like we are in the Harmattan period. Yeah, we're in the Harmattan period, so I just felt like, well, the weather has changed, so let me work on something that like relates to the weather. So I decided to build like a weather application. So it's not something much. It's not something that is actually that extensive or something that is elaborate. Basically, we just have only one endpoint, and basically what the endpoint does is just to tell us the current temperature and like the weather of the current zip code of the place that we enter. So basically, like if I enter a zip code for Abuja or whatever, it tells us what the temperature of that current place is, and it tells us like the description, like, oh, okay, is it moderately raining heavily, things like that. So let's get into it. So settings, there's really not much, just setting of environmental files. So our secret key, because it's a Django project, so we don't want like just anybody having access to it. We store that in our environmental file, of course, for security reasons. I will not be opening that. And then, so the API that I used to get the weather information is called Open Weather. You guys can check it out. This is the API, api.openweathermap.org, blah blah blah. So I went and I read their documentation, and initially what I just wanted to do was just like pass in the city and then like give me the weather information. But the that method is depreciated. Not that it doesn't work, but I want something that worked accurately. And the latest version of their API basically uses longitude and latitude. So for me to be able to do that, I needed to be able to use their like geolocation, using geocoding basically to code and decode basically um based on the zip code that we pass into it. So basically, what geocoding does is it takes in the zip code and country code, not country code like plus 234 whatever, like that country code like NG to represent Nigeria, US to represent the United States, GB to represent Great Britain, things like that basically. So I use the geocode part of their API to basically take in zip code and country code, then generate longitude and latitude from that, and then pass longitude and latitude into their weather API to generate information. So let's walk through it. So our import render, this is something that actually just comes with our view file. So I don't actually use it. So I might as well just like remove it. It's not necessary. Import OS. OS is operating system basically. We're using that for our get environmental file, our API key. That's also necessary for the API. That's also stored in the environmental file, which I will not be showing you guys. Of course, like I said, for security reasons. Then from REST framework dot decorators import API view and permission classes, because obviously we need a view, and permission classes just like something formal to like allow any is authenticated basically. But we're using allow any because there's no database for storing of user info and things like that, so we don't need that. Import requests, our request is for like to be able to query our API URL, our response, our REST framework response, and then our status code like our HTTP 200 OK, blah blah blah. API view gets permission classes allow any, these are decorators. Then def, defining the views, defining the function base view, get current weather, passing our request, the zip code and the country code that we'll be using to query the API. So we pass that through the URL. Let's not forget that zip code, country code, we pass that as string formats because it recognizes it as string, not integer. Rest so basically we get our API key from our environmental file, always I get env API key, then URL1, which is our first stage, which is getting the longitude and latitude. So we pass in our zip code into this URL. So API the open weather map.org geo 1.0, because like this is the first version of the geocoding. Zip query, zip equals to zip code, that is the zip code that we're passing, then comma country code, which is a country code that we also pass into, and then app id, which is API key, basically just like the API key that is generated for me, my own particular use case. Basically what this is just used to do is just like for communication, like recognizing who is trying to access the API, and then also for rate limiting, like when you send multiple requests so you can know the amount of requests that you're making to the API. So response one, we query request or get URL1, this, so we query this URL and then we pass in the response that we get from it into this response one. So basically there are different formats of data that will be returned. We can get it in JSON format, XML format, blah blah blah. But based on the fact that I am used to JSON and it is a web app and JSON format is like the most used case, so I just response one dot JSON and then I pass it into this lat and long data, and now basically this will just host our key value pairs and our dictionary format. So we perform a check. If response 1 the status code is not equals to 200, that means if it returns any other code apart from 200 which represents okay, it should return a response that says error fetching information based on input. So basically based on whatever input you pass into it, if it returns a status code that is not 200, that states that okay, like what you passed into, I have information based on it, then we should return the response that error fetching information based on input. Else, if latitude in this data and longitude is also in the data, then we pass latitude and longitude into these variables. Lat long data, basically this, then the key that represents the value of the latitude, this is it, the key that represents the value of the longitude, this is it, and then name is just basically the city name based on the zip code that you pass into it. So yeah, once we get this, then we can now proceed to actually what we want to achieve, because our main aim isn't just to get latitude and longitude based on zip code. Our main aim is to get the latitude and longitude and then use it to get weather information. So URL2, using the same method, API the open weather map.org data, remember not geo this time, geocoding data, now we're trying to get information. 2.5, that is the version, then weather, then lat represents latitude, we pass in our latitude into it, and then long represents longitude, and then app id, of course our API key for querying. Response 2, same thing that we did with this response 1, request that gets URL2, query this based on this latitude and longitude with our API key. Whatever information you get, represent it in JSON format and then store it in this weather. Now if response to the status code not equals to 200, return response message error fetching weather information, try again later. So basically if the status code is not 200, if it doesn't say that okay what you queried is correct, then just tell them that okay, fetching weather information, there's an error, try it again later. But if not, that means if it is actually equals to 200, then we pass in our city from here, because I feel like this format is more better. City, the temperature, and then the description. So city, basically the city that you queried using the zip code, the temperature of that particular place right now, and then the description, like okay, very hot, very cold, blah blah blah. temperature is going to be weather main temp. Based on the dictionary, the way like they structure their response, you guys can go and check it out. I think I'll add the link to the this thing to the sites for you guys to check it out if you want to work on something like that. um they basically have different various responses from chord, like the coordinates, the weather, the base, temperature, what it feels like, minimum, maximum, the pressure, humidity, sea level, blah blah blah, all of that. But what I just wanted was the temperature and the description of the weather. So basically, it's just like, okay, this is the current temperature, and then this is like the description of the temperature. Return the response data status .http 200, okay. And else, this basically, remember we did this if lat in lat long data and long in lat long data, basically checking if latitude and longitude exist in the data that we are querying. Like this whole code, like everything from year to year should run if that exists. But if it doesn't exist, then latitude and longitude not found in response. Basically, that is it. This is already on my GitHub. I actually gave the commit a very funny name. I called it my final project before I turned 20. Yeah, because this is actually the last project that I'm working on as a teenager. So come Sunday, your boy is should I say a man? I don't know. Anyways, 2 decades. Thank God. So yeah, I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys can use this, like come up with some mad web-based idea, because I mean web development and basically anything technology is all about innovation. And so yeah, this is what I wanted to use it for. Let's see what you guys can use it for. Cheers, bless. Hopefully I get to make another video very soon. If not, whenever you guys see me, you guys see me. So bless.